we had to purchase another 4,000 acre feet of water that was beyond our contract. So we worked with separate agencies that had some water supplies and purchased it, but that came at a cost of about $2.5 million to purchase that extra water to bring into to the aqueduct to Lake Palmdale last year.
I have a question.
Sure.
And, who came up with the recommended outdoor irrigation on 3 days a week? And what is the, if 15% conservation is the goal, am I correct there? Who decided 3 days a week is going to get that? I mean, to me, it's all wasted water. If you're going to water a lawn 3 days a week, kill it now. Why water?
Well, yeah, so interestingly, I decided to test that out with my own. I had a little patch,
Okay.
and it did not. I would not have won any awards for my lawn.
Well, desert scape.
Yeah, my little patch of lawn, it wouldn't won any awards. It looked pretty yellow, but it did make it through.
So make it through what? I guess is my question. If we have 2 months of 110-degree weather, 3 days a week, very few lawns are going to make it through that. And you can tell me what kind of grass you have. Maybe
I actually apologize because I couldn't tell you what kind of grass I have.
Because there are some grasses that may get through that with only yellow and survive. Hybrid Bermuda or even common Bermuda, but your fescue lawns that everybody likes, 3 days a week at 110 degrees. I mean, it's a joke to even try.
I see Denise shaking her head. She knows more about lawns than I do. So.
Well, and that's why I'm asking my question. I think we all know more about lawns than whoever made those recommendations. So, who's coming up with those? Some guy who doesn't live here?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Well, I think that's a fair question. Right. So a lot of the recommendations are more like statewide recommendations, then get put into the urban water management plans. And right, that's a tough call, right? If we don't have enough water to water lawns completely, you just say no watering, or do you expand that window as much as you can? So that's fair. I recognize that probably there are lawns that 3 days of water is not enough.
If we live in Carpinteria, it's fine.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
can get through, but Lancaster, Palmdale, it is not. It can't happen. And then, there's always the unintended consequences too. If you decide to let, and again, I'm not saying you, I'm saying
No.
whoever. If you decide to let the lawns die, then what? Because lawns have value. Not only lawns, but other plants too. But I'm just using that as an example. A cooling value, 3 to 5 tons of air conditioning value for every 1,000 square feet. It looks cool, it looks nice, as well as it really does cool. It adds humidity. And the trees that don't get watered because you aren't watering your lawn, how many of those do we let die? If you want to be green, we need to have some green. And then your air conditioning costs go up. So now we're going to use more electricity. How green are these things when you get to the end? Instead of the feel-good stuff at the beginning, we saved 2 gallons of water.
Yeah, no, there is a nexus. There's a huge nexus between the water piece and the energy side of it, and it probably isn't fully thought through, like entirely, in terms of like how do those secondary impacts, create other problems. I mean, there are other problems that we run into with drought mandates. When we reduce down the amount of water that people use, it becomes a little harder for our wastewater treatment plants. More expensive to run those. The water is more concentrated going to them. There are a lot of secondary consequences with it, and I would say that the rules aren't perfect. I think we're doing our best to walk the line in terms of how can we reduce the impact as much as possible. So I mean, you'll see that there's going to be, I think if you live in LA County or in LA proper, you only water 1 day a week. Metropolitan, yeah. And
but they have exemptions, because I talked to Mike McNutt, he used to be here, so he's there. And I talked to him because I'm doing houses in Thousand Oaks, and anything that's on a drip system or, depending on the irrigation, that's exempt from that 1 day a week rule.
And that's a really good point, and something that we were going to touch on is that really these watering restrictions are about running sprinklers.
Yes,
So-
that's what he was telling me.
So if you have a drip system, you're already considered efficient.
Mhm.
So these restrictions wouldn't apply. This really is about turning on your sprinklers and watering.
So
turf.
yeah.
Oh, no, that's okay. Are you done? I mean,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Let Brad speak now.
Is this the current guidelines, or is that next? I mean, you still haven't?
Well, those were the recommendations. So that's what last year in August, we came out and said, hey, we're still asking for 15% voluntary, but can we, we're also recommending as a suggestion, cut back to 3 days a week on your watering, and only water in the cool times when you're not gonna have as much.
Well, because this is almost a year ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
And-
so I thought there were going to be new guidelines.
Well, now it's mandatory, and those,
Okay.
Oh, that was
those,
recommended.
those were recommended at the time.
Okay.
Those ones have become mandatory as of May.
We're getting ahead of you a little bit.
Little
so
bit.
That's probably the next slide. Sorry about that.
It is, that's all right. No, if you guys are getting ahead of me, then it's making sense, so that's good.
So 3 days a week, for how long? I mean,
We're not
Like,
actually restricting how long.
so I control the sprinklers for half an hour?
Just go crazy.
Yeah,
So there's no time?
So we're not saying how long. Right? One of the reasons is it would be really difficult for us to go out and police and say, you watered for more than, an hour. Like that, it's not even practical for us to do. The way it really works is you decide, you can water as long as you need to. The main key piece is that you can't have significant water runoff of your property. If you have significant water runoff of your property, then that is something that's considered water waste. So if you could water for an hour and not have that happen,
Yeah, because I see my neighbors, they do it every day. I mean, I'm not going to point fingers, but I'm saying, how do you know who is doing it, who is not doing it?
well, we do have.
Well, you're retired. That's all right.
So we do some patrols. Our water use efficiency staff does patrols, and right now what we're doing is we're handing out warnings to people and saying like, hey, you're watering outside of your time or outside of the appropriate day. If please correct it, and that's what's going on right now. I
Because
think.
I'm following the rules, but I mean, some people don't care.
No, it's
Yeah,
true.
they don't.
I mean, so,
It's true. It's true. Some people don't care.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt for just a second because
my breath is dying. I mean,
what you two are talking about was kind of my point before. Somebody made up these 3-day-a-week rules and then didn't make up how long I could water. So if I can water 12 hours, 3 days a week, can I have water? The problem with that is that doesn't work for the lawn, for lawns and ground covers and things like that. It might work for trees. We water once a week for 12 hours for trees. That's what we do. So it would work. But by making a rule, I think there's a problem. You can only water 3 days. Give me the rule I have to save 15%, and then I have to figure out how to do it. If you tell me I can only water 3 days a week, I'm not only going to use more water, I'm not going to have as nice a yard.
so
To
where's the
me,
saving?
it just doesn't work. The lawn doesn't have a 4-foot deep root system. So watering longer doesn't keep it alive longer. But all my customers, all the people I know are going to do that because they think they're trying to get water into their soil.
Right.
And our water can't absorb. Not in every place, there are a lot of different soil types, but a lot of the soil types can't absorb water, the water we put on. So we should be watering 5 days a week in the summertime. But different ways. And then I just want to throw this out so you know, but there are overhead spray systems, not quite as efficient as drip, but pretty damn close. So if you and the first time this drought thing went, that's actually the stuff California made illegal to start with. Oh, you can't use the certain type sprinkler head, and it's like, well, those are the only ones that can meet the, so they did back off on that and said, you use what is the best, and that allowed us to do some things, but anyway,
Yeah.
you have to take from that what you believe or don't, but making it 3 days a week, I think is a death sentence for lawns.
And then I had, go ahead.
No, even though I'm not saving water, I could save water other ways, but go ahead.
So what I've been recommending, and what Brad and Glenn has, as well, have been recommending for new sod going in, we do the underground water system with Netafin subsurface drip line. So it's, there's the evaporation rate is much lower, and you could water your lawn every day, nobody will know, because it's all underground. It's in the root system.
Right.
So that would be exempt, I would think, from, it's more, you're worried about the sprinklers that are watering the sidewalk, the driveway, the neighbor's car,
That's
not
true.
the lawn.
That's true. And so what I do is I do have to, the questions were good. We've almost eaten up our entire hour. I see Judy's looking at me.
I moved from that seat to this
Yeah,
seat.
yeah,
And how do I-
We're getting closer.
So
So,
we're passionate about this stuff.
yeah. No, and I think it's really valuable that we continue this conversation, even if it doesn't alter the way that the rules are this go around. I think would be helpful, informative to the state and to our collective urban water management plans on how to deal with these. The real crux of the issue, though, is that the bulk of the water use that we see is irrigation out here. So most of it is used for irrigation. There really isn't a way to get 20% savings from just like internal use in a house. The place where the cut really comes from is that outdoor irrigation, and so that's where the squeeze, at least from out here in the valley, that's where that squeeze would need to come from in order to bridge that supply gap that we have right now. There's probably a more elegant way to do it, but this is where we're at this point. Yeah.
Is the water district going to supply people with information to whether they've cut back enough? And if they haven't, what's going to happen? And this is supposed to be from 2020, to cut back from 2020, correct? Okay, there are a lot of houses in the Antelope Valley that didn't exist in 2020. So what's their allocation? And people who buy houses have no track record.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So really what PWD is looking for is not necessarily that every individual customer cuts 20%. There's a lot of customers that we have that are doing an awesome job already. They've already cut back as much as they possibly could. And asking them to do another 20% more would not make sense. So really what we're looking for is an aggregate 20% from our collective customers. So we're not really going to be looking to like tell an individual you're saving 15 or 20% versus what you did in 2020. The best way you can look to see if you're being efficient is look at your water bill. If you're only using in that first 2 tiers of water, then you're an efficient customer. We're not really concerned about what you're doing with your water. If you're someone that's watering in tiers 3 through 5, we would really want you to take a look. What can I do to cut back? And what can I, maybe take advantage of some of these rebate programs that we have available, so that to help cut back on that water use. So we're not really looking for, if you're already in tier 1, tier 2, like we're not asking you to cut back 20%.
So have these tiers been adjusted? I mean, the tier 1 in 2020 was how much, and a tier 1 in 2022 is how much?
It's a good question. Judy, you okay if I go a little long, or?
As long as they're okay.
Okay. So I'm going to actually get to a slide with the tiers on it. So I'll answer that question in just a minute. All right. So April 2022, we made the call for 20% mandatory conservation. We did make those restrictions that were recommended earlier as mandatory. The Monday, Wednesday, and Friday irrigation, we restricted the irrigation times to after 6 p.m. or before 10 a.m. Implemented a drought factor on water rate tier 2. So your tier 2 is based on your irrigable area of your lot. So what that drought factor shrinks that tier 2 allotment by 20%. Kind of in line with our looking for 20% reduction. Then there is a drought surcharge on the tiers 3 through 5, so 40 cents per unit. And so like, remember we were talking about units. A unit is 15 of these containers. So for every 15 of those containers, when you're using in the tiers 3 through 5, there would be an extra 40 cents. We're currently looking at trying to purchase 2,000 to 4,000 acre feet of additional supplies. And the prices have pretty much doubled from, actually more than doubled from last year for available water on the market to bring in through the aqueduct. And we're targeting about a reduction of 3,000 acre feet through conservation measures, starting from May through December. And I'm happy to report, like right now preliminarily, it looks like we're getting really close to that 20%. There's been a lot of response to the call to conserve, and that makes a big difference. If we conserve more, all that does is save us money by not having to purchase that extra supplemental supply in a really, really dry year. So we kind of talked through these already, so we won't spend a lot of time, and you have a flyer on them, but we have those irrigation restrictions for Monday, Wednesday, and
Saturday.
I had a mistake on there, didn't I, Judy? Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. Tier 2 is reduced by 20%, and you have those drought surcharges on tiers 3 through 5. So to add a little bit more clarity there, your essential use tier is based on what's considered the standard in California of 55 gallons per person per day. So Ponded Water District assumes that you have 4 people in your house and bases that first tier on that. However, if you have more people in your house, you can come in and fill out a claim for more people in your house, and that enlarges that first tier by 55 gallons per day per person. The efficient use tier 2 is based on your irrigable area in your lot. So if you have a larger lot, that tier 2 is a little bigger. And it's also based on weather. So if it's raining during that period of time, then the tier shrinks a little bit based on the weather. If it's really hot, it expands.
Okay, how is that footprint being determined?
So I'll let Dennis correct me if I get this wrong. DWR had contracted with an aerial surveillance company that helped ascertain what lot sizes were within different areas, and so we adopted their survey data. Got it